3 billion people around the world rely on wild caught and farmed seafood as a significant source of animal protein. According to the Worldwide Wildlife Fund, nearly 25 million people globally rely on small scale fisheries for their livelihood. But policies often ignore this, focusing on big scale yield or conservation quotas. Food security is when access to sufficient, safe, nutritious food for all people at all times meets dietary requirements and preferences. Indigenous Australians historically relied on fishing for food, trade, and cultural practices. Colonisation disrupted this access. Indigenous groups globally consume 15 times more seafood than the global average. Subsistence fishing is crucial for local diets, culture, and tradition. Edward H. Allison and Frank Alice explain in their book, Marine Policy. They argue that small-scale fisheries are vital, not only just as ecosystems of fish, but as a source of livelihood, social structure, and food, especially for coastal dwelling communities. In 1990, 28.5 million people made some or all of their living from fish capture and production. Of those, around 24 million were small-scale fishers. Small-scale fishers and coastal communities are facing a rapidly declining stock. Overfishing, climate change, and habitat loss aid the destruction of generationally built small businesses and cultural fishing practices. Small-scale fishers are forced to compete with industrial fleets and enormous companies that radically reduce the local access to ocean foods. Industrial fleets overexploit fish stocks, accelerate climate change, undermining sustainability for everyone involved, especially coastal communities and Indigenous people, who feel the effects of the climate crisis before other communities do. However, small-scale fisheries are generally more selective, less destructive, and connected to local stewardship. Millions of small-scale fishers depend on coastal resources for livelihoods. When sidelined, communities lose income, self-reliance, and resilience against poverty. Small-scale fisheries in this way underpin food security, cultural identity, and intergenerational traditions, especially for Indigenous and coastal communities. Ignoring them erases voices that have long sustained marine ecosystems and leaves them vulnerable to malnutrition and inadequate resources. Policy issue is a stake in a systemic neglect of small-scale fisheries in ocean governance. This inequity creates a cycle where small-scale fishers face ecological decline and regulatory exclusion without receiving the benefits of marine conservation or industrial profits. For these reasons, addressing the issue is essential. I'm calling for sustainable fisheries policy to embrace inclusive, equity-based approaches that value small-scale fishers as valued custodians of the ocean. This means protecting their access rights, integrating traditional knowledge into governance, and ensuring that the environmental goals do not come at the expense of community survival. To secure futures for both people and planet, sustainable fishing policies must prioritize ocean equity alongside conservation. Governments and international bodies should implement policies that support and guarantee secure access rights for small-scale fishers and traditional fishing grounds for First Nation peoples. Further, we must integrate Indigenous and local knowledge into management and support community-led enforcement and monitoring to protect ecosystems.